Hey there, everyone. Back with another great franchisee franchise envy.
Up next.
I'm a unique story of how I found my franchise. I did not do the typical research. I was young and dumb, if you will.
Start talking about it and be about it. You heard it here.
Oh, what are the keys of life and happiness and all those great questions that we should be asking.
I have Kyle Chiasson is with Best Option Restoration. How you doing, Kyle?
Good, Lance. Thanks for having me today.
Well, thank you for being here and telling us the truth about being a franchisee, especially with Best Option. Thanks again for being here. So, how long have you been a franchisee of Best Option Restoration?
I'm going on 8 years. I started in 2017 and will be shortly entering my 8th year.
I love it. 8 years already. So, is this your very first business?
This is my first business.
So, what were you doing prior to becoming a franchisee? What were you doing?
So prior to becoming a franchisee, I entered the corporate world for about 10 months. The area I was in was banking and wealth management. So I was on my way to getting my certified financial planning certification. And I was kind of a pseudo private banker. It was a little bit of a unique role for that bank, but a pseudo private banker with a little bit of a wealth management arm to it. And I was only there about 10 months and pivoted.
Got it. Why did you get into a franchise?
I got into a franchise because of the founder, Nick Anthony Zamison. He was actually a friend of my mom's, and I met him at a networking event. And my mom told me I should probably take him to dinner. Well, really, he took me to dinner, but I should ask him if he had, time to go to dinner. And so we chatted, and I didn't know anything about Best Option Restoration. It didn't come up at dinner in the slightest, but we kept in touch for the next 2 months or so. And long story short, he was just getting Best Option Restoration off the ground at that time and said, "Hey, I want you to come open up a franchise." So I did.
Well, that's awesome. Give me a topic that came up at dinner. Was it all about really entrepreneurship? You said Best Option didn't come up, so it was all about business ownership.
Yeah, it was. So I was 22 years old. So I was very interested in what's made you successful, and what are the keys of life and happiness, and all those great questions that we should be asking. And so I kind of asked just about a story, and he asked about mine, and we more connected on just a get to know each other level. I had a project I was working on, so I shared a little bit about that. And we talked, which was a business that I didn't start, but I was thinking about starting. And then it ended.
Nick's awesome. So that's great.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
So, and obviously the next question on my list that I ask everybody the same standard questions, love to
Yes.
hear these answers. How did you find your franchise? Well, your franchise found you through your mother, right?
Yeah. I'm a unique story of how I found my franchise. I did not do the typical research. I was young and dumb, if you will. I didn't do the typical research that a lot of candidates do, and define what's the right brand and right franchise for them. A lot of me was about who Nick was and the vision he had, and I bought into that. And frankly, I didn't have a lot to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what was your all-in investment? How many territories did you initially buy?
So I started with one. My all-in investment was about 150,000, and I started with one territory. And in the first year, I did acquire a second territory from an existing owner, and then about 3 years after that, I partnered on another 2 territories.
So why this particular franchise? What really sold you? Now, obviously, again, it's a little bit unique. You have
Yeah.
now a personal connection to Nick Anthony, but the reality is, did you at some point look at other options out there before you decided I'm going to get into this boring, unsexy business?
So how I settled in on Best Option Restoration was, it was a lot more about the who than the what. So I after chatting with Nick over the couple months, I looked into him a little bit, and I saw the business success that he had. I knew from, I don't know about a young age, but I knew for a long time I really wanted to be in business for myself. And I thought the track record, or the track was, I need to save up all this money and then come up with this brilliant idea, which would be the sexy business, and then, grind and work hard on that. And that was the narrative in my head of, well, I think this is how it's done. And that's kind of what you read about. But then when you don't, if you're not open to opportunity, you're not going to find it. And so I was open to starting my own business. I didn't know what that was going to look like. And so when I met Nick, and I make everybody, I've learned processes decisions a little bit differently. I am a lot on the gut and make decisions fairly quickly. And so I felt really good about it. And I trusted the track record and where really the vision that, Nick had kind of laid out for Best Option Restoration. So I committed to that.
What was the absolute hardest part of launching this franchise?
The absolute hardest part of launching the franchise was learning what's actually important. So you open up this new business, and the franchisor helps a lot with laying out a roadmap, if you will. However, as a business owner, there's a lot on your plate outside of that. And it took some time to really identify, well, what's actually important. And most things are important, but then out of what's important, what's urgent, what must I do today, and what can be done later. And there's a lot of sorting through and filtering that out, especially me opening up my first company at that time and not necessarily knowing how to prioritize that. And I learned in the first couple of years how to do that.
I really love your answer. I love what I hear to be the honesty in the answer, because you talk about a blueprint or a playbook or a roadmap, and people can screw that up.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of human error can come into that.
Absolutely. So I like look, I have to prioritize. I have to get stuff done. So
and there's many important things throughout the day. You need to pick what you need to get done now, though.
Yeah, no, that's great. Everybody wants to know, what is at least one secret to your success?
I think as a business owner, it's controlling the headspace, controlling the mental, because I can make a problem in my head. I have problems every day. It just happens. If you're in business, it doesn't matter what it is, you will have problems every day. Filtering out and controlling the narrative and the stories that you tell yourself is really important to staying on track. And you touched on it of following the plan. Well, the plan is there, but if you get too caught up on the mental side of things and tell yourself a wrong narrative, you can very quickly be veered off the plan or lie to yourself that you're following the plan.
Where there's not success, why are people, maybe even in Best Option or other businesses, not as successful? What have you seen in that?
The obvious is not following the plan, right?
Yeah.
The system. And this is about franchising. So when you're buying into a franchise, the system is there. Execute on it.
So how much can a great franchisee do in revenue, in sales let's say per territory? You have multiple, so per territory.
Yeah. So a good target per unit, and you could do more than this, but I'll say a good healthy target is about 750,000 a unit. I know the item 19 read a little bit higher than that, but that's a good healthy number. And when you're approaching that mark, it's time to expand and grab another one. And that's essentially what I did throughout the last 8 years.
What should the typical income be associated with that territory? You do 750,000 in revenue. What kind of income? Is it 20%?
What target income do you have, or what income can you expect from a unit is right around 30% net.
30% net? Sign me up. I'm in.
It's restoration. There's great margins in restoration.
Final advice or thoughts for anyone interested in business ownership, what would that be? One nugget for them.
Final advice, one nugget. Two, I'll leave you with two things that kind of work together. So one, it's really hard. No matter what business you get into, it's hard because the buck stops with you. You're falling on the sword. You control your own destiny there. But the second part to that is stop talking about it and be about it. If you have something you want to go do it. The worst thing that happens is you fail. Okay, and you're back to where you were before.
Start talking about it and be about it. You heard it here.
Oh, let's go. You're pumping me up, Lance.
Kyle, you're awesome. Thanks for being here, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you soon.
It. Yep, sounds good.
If you're ready to talk about franchise opportunities, hit the link below to schedule a call. My services are free, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for listening.